All right, welcome to our deep dive into abundance spirituality. You guys wanted a closer look at this whole concept, and we've got a really interesting collection of stuff to dig into today. We're mostly focusing on excerpts from a book called Abundance Spirituality, but we'll also be looking at some powerful quotes and even get a glimpse of how some celebrities view this whole thing. Get ready, because we're going to be uncovering some pretty thought-provoking stuff. Like, did you know some people think rejecting abundance is the actual path to spiritual growth?
It really makes you think, doesn't it? This idea of whether or not you can truly be on a spiritual journey while also embracing abundance. The book dives right into this, mentioning how a lot of spiritual people seem to think material wealth and spiritual growth are just like incompatible.
Yeah, in chapter one, the author definitely brings that up, but then they go on to argue that you actually need both abundance and spirituality for a truly fulfilling life. It's like they're challenging a pretty fundamental belief. What are your thoughts on that? Is it almost like choosing between two separate paths?
Oh, for sure. It's a balancing act. It's almost like on the one hand, you've got this drive for material success, like, the house, the car, all that. But then on the other hand, there's that pull towards spiritual growth, which often actually emphasizes simplicity and detachment from those very things. You can almost feel like you're being pulled in opposite direction.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking as I was reading it. But the author had this really interesting analogy about train tracks. They say you need both tracks, abundance and spirituality, to keep the train of life moving forward, moving smoothly.
That's such a great visual, too. I mean, if you think about it, a fulfilling life really does need that, like nourishment on different levels. It's like needing both food and water. We need the material stuff, sure, to thrive in the world. But then we also need things like love, purpose, and connection to really feel like truly fulfilled, right?
That makes a lot of sense, I think. It's not about completely rejecting abundance, but rather about finding that sweet spot where material comfort and spiritual growth actually complement each other, right?
Yeah, exactly. And, speaking of spiritual growth, chapter 2 of the book is just packed with these really, really thought-provoking quotes. Like some of them really, they just stopped me in my tracks when I was reading them.
Me too. Okay, this one by Ram Dass, this one totally blew my mind. The most exquisite paradox. As soon as you give it all up, you can have it all. As long as you want power, you can't have it. The minute you don't want power, you'll have more than you ever dreamed possible. Wow. What do you make of that?
Well, that's Ram Dass for you. Always hitting us with those profound truths, right? I think what he's getting at is that desperately clinging to things, especially like power or control, creates this resistance. It's like when you try to hold sand too tightly in your hand, it just slips through your fingers. But when you actually loosen your grip, when you kind of surrender to something bigger than yourself, that's when things can really start flowing, often in unexpected ways.
So it's about letting go of that need to control everything and trusting, right, that things will work out, almost like taking a leap of faith.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of counterintuitive, I guess. You'd think holding on tight would give you more control. But in reality, it's often that grip that's actually holding you back from experiencing, true abundance. Letting go can be powerful.
Wow, that's a pretty big shift in perspective, isn't it? It makes me think of another quote from that chapter, the one that says, "Make peace with yourself, and both heaven and earth will make peace with you." I don't know, there's just something about that.
Oh, it's beautiful, isn't it? I think, to me, that speaks volumes about the importance of inner harmony.
Yeah.
If you're constantly battling with yourself, full of self-doubt or negativity, it creates this energy that pushes away all the good stuff. But when you actually cultivate that inner peace and acceptance, it's like you become this magnet for abundance.
I love how you put that, becoming a magnet for abundance. I noticed that a lot of these quotes also talk about giving and sharing, like this one from Rohan Pereira. What you gain, another will lose. For what is there is all there is. What you share, another will have. For what is there is enough for all. So simple, but it's just so powerful.
I know, right? It challenges that whole scarcity mindset, that not enough to go around kind of thinking. Pereira's reminding us that true abundance isn't a finite pie where if someone wins, someone else loses. When you actually share your resources, your talents, your love, you're not depleting your own supply. You're actually contributing to a greater collective abundance that benefits everyone.
So abundance isn't just about what you have, but it's about contributing to this bigger flow of energy and resources.
Yeah. It's understanding we're all connected.
Yeah.
And that generosity can actually fuel abundance, not diminish it.
Okay, that really changes things. It's not just about attracting abundance for ourselves, but also being part of a larger system of giving and receiving, right? So we've talked about the kind of paradox of abundance and spirituality, and we explored some really inspiring quotes. Now, let's jump into chapter 3, which is all about spiritual mantras. These are like those powerful affirmations that people say can help attract abundance, right?
Yeah. Think of mantras as like more than just words. They're vibrational tools that can actually shift your energy and align you with your desires. They've been used for centuries in tons of different spiritual traditions to focus the mind, cultivate positive emotions, and, ultimately manifest those intentions.
Okay, so it's not just about like repeating nice sounding phrases. There's a deeper, like energetic aspect to it. Some of these in the book really spoke to me, like, I am a radiant being filled with light and love. Simple yet powerful.
It really is. That mantra is all about like self-love and recognizing your inherent worthiness. You're not broken or lacking. You already have this incredible inner light and love. By repeating that mantra, you're not just saying it, you're actually embodying it. You're feeling it.
That's beautiful. Another one that really stood out to me was the abundance of the universe flows to me, through me, and around me at all times. I can almost feel the energy shifting when I say that one.
That's a super powerful one for tapping into that limitless abundance of the universe. Reminding you that you're not separate from this flow of abundance, but you're actually immersed in it. By repeating this mantra, you're opening yourself up to receiving this abundance in all areas of your life.
I love that. It makes me think of like a river. You're not trying to create the water, you're just letting yourself be in the flow, just letting it carry you.
Speaking of different traditions, the book mentions a Sikh mantra, the Ardas. Can you tell us a little bit more about that one? Yeah, the Ardas is this beautiful prayer that's, essentially asking for the fulfillment of all desires and the removal of any obstacles. It's an affirmation of faith, surrender, and trust in divine grace. What's really cool about it is that it's not just focused on personal gain, it's also about the well-being of the entire community.
Mm.
So it's a pretty special mantra.
So it's like a collective mantra for abundance.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
like acknowledging that our individual desires are intertwined with the well-being of the whole. A powerful reminder that we're all in this together.
That's so cool. I'm already feeling inspired to like explore these mantras more and see which ones really resonate with me. But before we get too deep into that, I'm curious to hear what some celebrities have to say about spirituality. They're often associated with material success, so it's interesting to get their take on this whole abundant spirituality thing. Chapter 4 of the book has a whole section on that.
Oh yeah, that section was full of surprises, that's for sure. Like who knew Jenny McCarthy is like a total spiritual bookworm.
Right. She says, people don't see this side of me. They don't know I read like 800 million spiritual books. Lately, I am just really getting into a lot of spirituality.
It definitely challenges those Hollywood stereotypes for sure.
It really does. And you know what? It makes sense, right? Even people who seem to have it all, the fame, the fortune, all that, they're often still searching for something deeper, something more meaningful in life.
Definitely. Okay, this next quote, this one really surprised me. Susan Sarandon said, "So I would hope they would develop some kind of habit that involves understanding that their life is so full they can afford to give in all kinds of ways to other people. I consider that to be baseline spirituality."
Whoa. That's a beautiful perspective, isn't it? She's like tying generosity directly to spiritual growth. Like true abundance isn't just about accumulating, wealth or possessions, but it's about recognizing the abundance you already have and sharing that freely with others.
It's understanding that you have enough to give, and that active giving is a spiritual practice in itself.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's about shifting from a mindset of like lack to a mindset of abundance. It's powerful.
Okay, I'm loving this. Now, this quote from Tommy Chong, this one really made me chuckle. He was talking about the difference between, religion and spirituality. And he says, religion is run by thought police. Obey, listen, this is what you do, don't ask questions, go die for your country. The spirituality says, okay, you can die for your country, but know what you're doing while you're doing it. I love that.
Huh. That's definitely a more, I guess you could say, irreverent take. But you know what? I think he makes a really important point. True spirituality isn't about like blind faith or just following dogma. It's about questioning things, exploring and understanding, the deeper meaning behind your actions and your beliefs. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, it's about being conscious, being aware, and not just going through the motions, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's about taking ownership of your spiritual journey and finding what truly, truly resonates with you.
It seems like a lot of these celebrities are emphasizing that personal experience and individual understanding when it comes to spirituality. It's pretty cool.
I agree. And you know what? It really goes to show that there's no like one size fits all approach to spirituality. It's a journey of self-discovery and connecting with something, greater than yourself. But that journey is going to look different for everyone.
So how do all these different perspectives from authors to spiritual leaders to celebrities, how do they all tie into this concept of abundant spirituality? I mean, we've got this mix of ideas about letting go, being present, giving freely, finding inner peace.
Well, I think what we're seeing is a shift from a purely material definition of abundance to, I guess you could say, a more holistic understanding. It's not just about money and possessions. It's about embracing abundance in all areas of life.
So it's also about abundance of like love, abundance of joy, abundance of purpose, and abundance of connection. It's about all of it.
Yes, it's about recognizing that abundance that already exists within you and all around you. It's about cultivating an attitude of gratitude, generosity, and being open to receiving all the good that the universe has to offer.
Okay, I love how you put that. It's about shifting our perspective to see the abundance that's already there rather than focusing on what we lack, right? Speaking of shifting perspectives, the last chapter of this book, this one really caught my attention. It talks about, decluttering as a key to attracting abundance. I have to admit, the thought of cleaning my entire house to attract more abundance is a bit overwhelming, but I'm intrigued. What are your thoughts?
I know, right? At first, it sounds kind of counterintuitive. How can getting rid of things actually bring more abundance into your life?
Exactly. But the book argues that by clearing out, like, physical clutter, you're making space for new opportunities and experiences to come in. Almost like you're creating this vacuum that wants to be filled.
Yeah, that's a great way to think about it. And, it's not just about physical clutter. It's also about that mental and emotional clutter, too.
So all the negative thoughts, the limiting beliefs, grudges, past hurts, all the stuff we tend to just, hold on to. We got to clear that out.
Exactly. All that can really weigh us down and block the flow of abundance. It's like we're holding ourselves back.
Okay, that makes sense. But how do you actually declutter your mind? It's not like you can just like throw away a negative thought in the trash, can you?
Uh-huh. Well, no, not quite. It's more about, I guess, recognizing those thoughts and choosing not to give them power over you.
Yeah.
Practices like meditation can be really helpful for this. They teach you to observe your thoughts without judgment, letting them come and go, kind of like clouds.
So instead of trying to like suppress those negative thoughts, we learn to acknowledge them and let them pass through.
Yes, you're changing your relationship with them.
Mm.
You're not pretending they're not there, but you're not letting them, define you or dictate your emotions either.
That's a really interesting way to look at it. The book also mentions something about like emotional decluttering, which sounds even trickier. Emotions can feel so deeply rooted, often tied to past experiences. How do we even start to declutter those?
Yeah, you're right. Emotions can definitely be complex. But just like thoughts, you can learn to observe them without getting swept away by them. It's about recognizing what you're feeling, allowing yourself to like fully feel it, but not letting it control you. It's a practice.
Okay, so for example, if I'm feeling angry, I don't try to bottle it up or ignore it. I just acknowledge, okay, this is anger and let myself experience it without letting it take over.
Yes, exactly. You allow it to be there. And then once you've acknowledged the emotion, you can start to explore it. Ask yourself, okay, well, what triggered this anger? Or is there a like deeper unmet need that's driving this emotion? And how can I address that need in a healthy way? It's about going a little bit deeper.
Wow, so emotional decluttering is really about like developing a deeper self-awareness and learning to respond to our emotions in a way that empowers us rather than lets those emotions sabotage us.
We got it. It's about gaining a better understanding of your emotional patterns and finding those healthier ways to cope with those challenging feelings. It's not easy, but it's powerful.
I'm starting to see how all this decluttering, both, physically and mentally, can create this sense of lightness and space, which allows those new possibilities to come in.
You're absolutely right. When we're weighed down by all that clutter, whether it's physical objects, negative thoughts, or unresolved emotions, it's like our energy is it gets constricted. But when we actually release those things, we free up that energy. It's like opening a window and letting fresh air flow through.
I love that analogy. So it's not just about like creating more physical space in your home or your office, but it's creating more mental and emotional space for creativity, inspiration, and even those new opportunities that might have been hidden before. It's about opening ourselves up.
Exactly. It's about creating an environment, both internal and external, that truly supports your growth and allows for those new possibilities to emerge.
This is also fascinating. Are there any like specific techniques or strategies for decluttering that you found to be particularly, I don't know, helpful, for those of us who might be feeling like a little overwhelmed by the whole process?
Oh, there are tons of techniques out there, but one that I find really effective is it's called the 4-box method. It's super simple. Basically, you just grab 4 boxes and you label them keep, donate, trash, and maybe.
Yeah.
Then you just go through each item, whatever area you're decluttering,
Okay.
and decide which box it belongs in. Pretty straightforward.
That does sound pretty simple. I think I could even handle that maybe. But what about the maybe box? I feel like that could easily become a procrastination zone where stuff just ends up sitting there forever.
Yeah, you're not wrong. That's a common trap. That's why it's important to set a deadline for yourself to revisit that maybe box. Maybe a week, maybe a month, whatever feels realistic. You go back through those items and you ask yourself the same questions. Do I use this? Does it bring me joy? Do I really need to keep this? If you still haven't used it or found a purpose for it by then, it's probably time to let it go. Time to say goodbye.
Okay. Yeah, I'm definitely going to try that. It does make decision making a lot easier when you have that clear system in place. I'm still a little curious though about the connection between, actually getting rid of stuff and attracting more abundance. Is it purely symbolic, or is there something more to it than that?
I think it's both. On a symbolic level, when you declutter, you're sending a message to the universe that you're ready for those new blessings to come in. You're creating that void that wants to be filled.
It's like you're making space for that abundance to flow in.
Exactly. And then on a more energetic level, think about it this way. Every item we own carries a certain vibration. When we're surrounded by clutter, all those different vibrations get kind of jumbled, stagnant, and it can weigh us down.
Yeah, like the energy is trapped in the clutter.
Yes. But when we release those items, we free up that energy. And it's like a breath of fresh air for our homes and for our minds.
That's such a cool way to look at it. So by decluttering, we're not just creating more like physical space, we're also creating more energetic space for that abundance to show up.
Exactly. And you know what? This actually applies to all areas of our lives, not just our homes.
Yeah.
It applies to our relationships, our careers, even our thoughts and emotions. It's really about creating space for what truly matters.
Okay, I think I'm starting to really get this. Decluttering isn't just about throwing things away. It's about being intentional, about what we allow into our lives, both physically and energetically. It's a big shift.
You got it. It's about creating a life that feels, spacious, joyful, and truly aligned with your true self.
I love how you put that. Before we wrap up this section on decluttering, you mentioned something earlier about letting go of, past regrets and anxieties about the future. It's so easy to get stuck in those thought patterns, especially when we're feeling overwhelmed. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, you're absolutely right. Dwelling on the past or worrying about the future can be so draining. And it really takes us out of the present moment, which is, where true abundance actually lives.
Yeah, how do we break free from those mental traps? I mean, it's easier said than done to just let go.
Well, one of the most powerful tools is gratitude. When you focus on what you're grateful for, it just naturally shifts your attention away from what you might lack or what you're afraid of. It's like flipping a switch in your mind.
So instead of replaying past mistakes or worrying about things that haven't even happened, we're choosing to appreciate all the good things we have right now, shifting that focus.
Exactly. And the more you practice gratitude, the more you actually train your mind to focus on abundance. It's like creating this positive feedback loop. You start noticing more things to be grateful for, which makes you feel more abundant, which attracts even more abundance into your life.
It's like a snowball effect of positivity and abundance. But what about those, those nagging worries about the future? How do we deal with those? They can be tough.
Well, one way is to try and reframe those anxieties as opportunities for growth. Instead of asking yourself, what if something bad happens?
Hmm.
Ask, what can I do to prepare for different possibilities? How can I actually take action to create the future I want? It's about taking control instead of letting those worries control you.
So it's about shifting from a place of fear to a place of empowerment. Instead of feeling helpless, we're taking control of our future by focusing on what we can do rather than what we can't. It's a more proactive approach.
Precisely. It's about shifting from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset.
This is all incredibly insightful. I'm already feeling a shift in my perspective just from this conversation. I'm eager to hear more about the practical side of all this, though. In the next part of our deep dive, let's explore how we can actually like integrate these abundant spirituality principles into our daily lives to create like real lasting change. It's all about the action, right?
Yes. That's what it all comes down to in the end. We've got a lot more to unpack, and I can't wait to explore those practical steps we can take to really declutter our lives and invite more of that abundance in.
Me too. Stay tuned because we're about to get really practical with it. Okay, so we're back and ready to like really dive into this whole decluttering thing. I gotta admit, the thought of cleaning my entire house to bring in more abundance is still a little daunting, even if it is for a good reason. I mean, where do we even begin?
Well, it doesn't have to be, this massive undertaking all at once. You can start small. Pick like one drawer, one shelf, or even just a corner of a room. The key is to be really intentional about it. Ask yourself with each item, like, does this bring me joy? Does this serve a purpose in my life, like right now? Or is it just taking up space?
Yeah.
Really think about it.
So it's not just about mindlessly getting rid of things, but being mindful about what we keep and what we let go of.
Exactly. And remember, decluttering isn't just about the physical stuff either. It's also about the mental and emotional baggage we tend to carry around with us.
Mm.
Those negative thoughts, limiting beliefs, old grudges, and even past hurts that might be holding us back.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. But how do you actually like declutter your mind? It's not like you can just, toss out a negative thought in the trash.
Uh-huh. Right. You can't exactly just throw those away. It's more about like recognizing those thoughts and choosing not to give them, that power over you. Practices like meditation can be really helpful for that. They teach you to observe those thoughts without judgment, just letting them come and go like clouds drifting by.
Oh, I like that. So instead of trying to like suppress those thoughts or push them away, we're learning to acknowledge them and just kind of let them pass through.
Exactly. You're changing your relationship with those thoughts. You're not pretending they're not there, but you're not letting them define you or dictate your emotions.
Okay, that's interesting. The book also mentioned like emotional decluttering, which sounds even trickier. Emotions can feel so deeply ingrained, like often tied to, past experiences. How do we even begin to like declutter those?
You're right. Emotions can be, they're complex, but just like thoughts, you can learn to observe them without getting completely swept away. It's about recognizing what you're feeling,
Yeah.
allowing yourself to really like feel it fully, but not letting it control you. It's a practice like anything else.
Okay. So for example, if I'm feeling like really angry, I don't try to like bottle it up or ignore it. I just kind of acknowledge, okay, this is anger and allow myself to experience it without letting it kind of take over.
Yes, exactly. You just allow it to be there. And then once you've acknowledged that emotion, you can start to kind of explore it a little bit. You can ask yourself like, okay, well what triggered this anger?
Yeah.
Is there a deeper unmet need that's driving this emotion? And then how can I address that need in a healthy way? It's about going a little bit deeper.
Wow. So it sounds like emotional decluttering is really about like developing a deeper self-awareness and learning to respond to our emotions in a way that empowers us rather than letting them kind of sabotage us.
You got it. It's about gaining a better understanding of your emotional patterns and finding healthier ways to cope with those challenging feelings. It's not easy, but it's so powerful.
I'm starting to see how this whole decluttering thing, both, physically and mentally, can create this sense of lightness and space, which allows new possibilities to come in, I guess.
You're absolutely right. When we're weighed down by clutter, whether it's physical objects, negative thoughts, or unresolved emotions, it's almost like our energy it gets constricted, it's stuck. But when we actually release those things, we free up that energy, and it's like It's like opening a window and just letting fresh air flow through. It's refreshing.
I love that analogy. So it's not just about creating more like physical space in, in your home or your office. It's about creating more mental and emotional space as well for creativity, inspiration, and even those new opportunities that might have been, I don't know, kind of hidden before.
Exactly. It's about creating an environment, both internal and external, that really truly supports your growth
Hmm.
and allows those new possibilities to emerge.
This is also fascinating. Are there like any specific techniques or strategies for decluttering that you found particularly, I don't know, helpful? For those of us who might be feeling like a little overwhelmed by the whole process.
Oh, there are tons of techniques out there for sure, but one that I find really effective is it's called the 4-box method.
Mm.
It's super simple. Basically, you just grab 4 boxes, you label them, donate trash, and maybe, and then you just go through each item in whatever area you're decluttering, yeah, and decide which box it belongs in. Pretty straightforward, really.
That does sound pretty straightforward. I think I could even handle that. But what about that maybe box? I feel like that could easily become a procrastination zone where things just kind of end up, sitting there indefinitely.
Uh-huh. Yeah, you're right. That's a common trap. That's why it's so important to set a deadline for yourself to actually revisit that maybe box, maybe a week, maybe a month, whatever feels realistic for you. And then you go back through those items and ask yourself, those same questions again. Do I use this? Does it bring me joy? Do I really need to keep this? And if you still haven't used it or, found a purpose for it by then, it's probably time to let it go.
Yeah, okay. I'm definitely going to try that. It does make decision making so much easier when you have that clear system in place. I'm still a little curious about the connection though between, actually getting rid of stuff and attracting more abundance. Is it purely symbolic or is there something more to it than that?
I honestly think it's both. On a symbolic level, when you declutter, you're kind of sending this message to the universe that you're ready for those new blessings to come into your life. You're creating that void that wants to be filled. It's like making space for something new.
Yeah, so it's like you're making space for that abundance to flow in.
Exactly. And then on a more energetic level, think about it this way.
Hmm.
Every item we own kind of carries a certain vibration. And when we're surrounded by all that clutter, all those different vibrations can get kind of jumbled, stagnant, and they can really weigh us down. It can feel heavy.
Oh yeah, like the energy is trapped in the clutter.
Yes. But when we release those items, we actually free up that energy. And it's like a breath of fresh air for our homes and for our minds.
That's such a cool way to think about it. So by decluttering, we're not just creating more like physical space, but we're also creating more energetic space for that abundance to manifest, I guess.
Exactly. And this applies to all areas of our lives, not just our homes, but also our relationships, our careers, even our thoughts and emotions. It's really about creating space for what truly matters to us.
Okay, I'm really starting to get this. Decluttering isn't just about, throwing things away. It's about being intentional about what we allow into our lives, both physically and energetically. It's a whole new way of thinking almost.
You got it. It's about creating a life that feels, spacious, joyful, and truly aligned with your true self.
I love how you put that. Before we wrap up this whole section on decluttering, you mentioned something earlier about letting go of, those past regrets and anxieties about the future. It's so easy to get stuck in those thought patterns, especially when we're feeling really overwhelmed. What are your thoughts on that?
You're absolutely right. Dwelling on the past or worrying about the future, it can be incredibly, incredibly draining.
Yeah.
And it really takes us out of the present moment, which is where true abundance actually resides.
So how do we actually break free from those mental traps? I mean, it's easier said than done to just let go.
I think, well, one of the most powerful tools is gratitude. When you focus on what you're grateful for, it just naturally shifts your attention away from what you might lack or what you're afraid of. It's almost like flipping a switch in your mind. It can be really powerful.
So instead of like replaying past mistakes or worrying about those things that haven't even happened yet, we're choosing to really appreciate the good things that we have right now. We're shifting our focus, right?
Exactly. And the more you practice gratitude, the more you actually train your mind
Yeah.
to focus on that abundance. It's like creating this positive feedback loop. You start noticing more and more things to be grateful for, which makes you feel more, abundant, which then attracts even more abundance into your life. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's like this snowball effect of positivity and abundance, right? But what about those kind of nagging worries about the future? How do we deal with those? They can be tough to shake.
Well, one way is to try and kind of reframe those anxieties as opportunities for growth
Yeah.
instead of asking yourself, what if something bad happens?
Hmm.
Ask yourself, what can I do to actually prepare for different possibilities? Or,
Yeah.
how can I take action to create the future I want?
Yeah.
It's about taking control rather than letting those worries control you.
Oh, so it's about shifting from a place of fear to a place of empowerment, right? Instead of feeling helpless, we're taking control of our future by focusing on what we can do rather than what we can't. It's a more proactive approach.
Precisely. It's about shifting from that scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset. It's a big change for sure.
Hmm. This is all incredibly insightful. I'm already feeling like a shift in my perspective just from this conversation. But I'm eager to hear more about the practical side of all this. Like in the last part of our deep dive, let's explore how we can actually, integrate these abundant spirituality principles into our daily lives to create real lasting change. It's all about the action, right? Taking those ideas and putting them into practice.
Yes,
It,
that's what it all comes down to in the end, for sure.
I'm ready to dive in. Okay, so we've talked about a lot the core concepts of abundant spirituality, those inspiring quotes, and even that whole decluttering thing. But now I kind of want to get into the nitty-gritty. How do we actually use all this? How do we integrate these principles into our, everyday lives and actually make them stick? But it's one thing to talk about it, but how do we actually do it?
You're right. It's one thing to understand the ideas, but putting them into practice, that's the real key. And I think it all starts with awareness, like we've been saying. A lot of this is about shifting our mindset from scarcity to abundance. And that means, becoming really conscious of our thoughts, beliefs, and actions throughout the day, not just, once in a while.
So it's like being more mindful of the stories we tell ourselves and the
Hmm.
choices we're making rather than just going through the motions like on autopilot, right?
Exactly. It's about tuning into that inner dialogue and noticing when you might be slipping into those negative or limiting thought patterns. And when you catch yourself, you just gently redirect your attention back to a more abundant perspective. It's like having this inner compass guiding you towards that more fulfilling life.
Oh, I like that, the inner compass. So it's not about beating ourselves up when we have those negative thoughts. It's about recognizing them and choosing a different path.
Exactly. It's about being kind to yourself throughout the whole process. The book also mentions that one of the biggest blocks to abundance is fear. It can really, really hold us back from going after what we want.
Ugh, yeah, that's a big one for me, for sure. Fear can be so paralyzing. Do you have any tips on how to move through it, how to not let it stop us?
Well, first of all, it's important to remember that fear it's a natural human emotion. It's not something to be ashamed of or to try and suppress. In fact, sometimes trying to just ignore it can actually make it stronger. A more helpful approach is to acknowledge it, but not let it take over.
So instead of pretending we're not afraid, we just kind of sit with that feeling and just observe it.
Yeah, exactly. You can even try getting curious about it. Ask yourself, well, what's at the root of this fear? What's the worst thing that could realistically happen?
Mm.
And even if that worst case scenario did happen, could I handle it? Sometimes just asking those questions can really shift things.
That's true. Sometimes when we really examine our fears, we realize they're not as scary as they seemed at first.
Right. We often build them up in our minds, making them seem so much, bigger and more threatening than they actually are.
Mm.
And once we can see that, it's easier to take action despite the fear. We don't let it stop us.
It's like we're taking back our power instead of letting fear be in control, right?
Exactly. And that sense of empowerment, that's so crucial for cultivating abundance. When you trust yourself and your ability to handle whatever comes your way, you're much more likely to take risks, to
Yeah.
step outside that comfort zone and ultimately attract those opportunities that are really aligned with what you want.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, another principle the book talks a lot about is this idea of, giving and receiving freely. Can you talk a little bit more about that? I feel like a lot of people struggle with both sides of that equation.
You're so right. It can be a tricky balance for sure. But giving and receiving, they're like two sides of the same coin. When you're open to giving, whether it's your time, your resources, or even just a kind word, you're creating this beautiful flow of energy that naturally attracts abundance back to you.
So it's not about giving with the expectation of getting something in return, but rather about, participating in this natural cycle of generosity and abundance.
Yes, exactly. It's about trusting that when you give freely, you'll also receive freely. And that goes for receiving too. When someone offers you a compliment or a gift or a helping hand, practice receiving it graciously without feeling like you need to, repay them or downplay your own worthiness. Just allow yourself to receive it.
That's so true. I think so many of us we really struggle with that receiving part, especially if we have those deep-seated beliefs about, not being worthy or deserving.
Yeah, that's incredibly common. But when you can really embrace the idea that you are inherently worthy of receiving love, abundance, and joy, you just open yourself up to a whole world of possibilities. It's like you're finally allowing yourself to receive all the good that the universe wants to give you. You're not blocking it anymore.
It's like removing those blocks that we've unknowingly put up around ourselves. We're getting out of our own way.
Exactly. And all of this really ties back to self-love.
Absolutely. Self-love is so fundamental to everything, isn't it? It's like the foundation.
It really is. Self-love is the foundation of this whole thing, of abundant spirituality. When you truly, truly love and accept yourself, flaws and all, you naturally attract people
Mm.
and experiences that reflect that love and acceptance right back to you. It's like you're radiating this energy that draws abundance toward you.
I love that. So it's not just about trying to manifest specific things or force abundance to happen, but it's about cultivating this inner state of being that attracts abundance naturally,
Yeah.
just by being who we are.
You got it. And that energy, it's contagious. When you embody self-love and abundance, it inspires others to do the same. It's like you're creating this ripple effect of positivity and generosity out in the world.
That's beautiful. Okay, so as we start to wrap up this deep dive, what are like some key takeaways that our listeners can, start implementing today to cultivate more abundance in their lives? What can they do right now?
Well, first and foremost, I'd say cultivate that awareness we talked about.
Mhm.
Pay attention to your thoughts and beliefs throughout the day. Notice when you might be slipping into that scarcity thinking and gently guide yourself back to a more abundant mindset.
Don't forget about the power of the present moment either. Being here now.
Yes. Let go of those past regrets and those anxieties about the future. Focus on what you're grateful for right now in this moment and trust that the universe is supporting you every step of the way. It's always there.
And remember, giving and receiving are two sides of the same coin. Embrace both with an open heart.
Beautifully said.
Yeah.
And finally, practice self-love. Nourish your body, your mind, and your spirit. Treat yourself with kindness and compassion. You are worthy of all the abundance life has to offer.
This has been such an inspiring deep dive. I feel like I'm walking away with so many practical tools and a renewed sense of hope, for
Yeah.
sure.
And then remember, the journey to abundance, it's a continuous process, not a destination.
Hmm.
Be patient with yourself. Celebrate those successes along the way, and never stop exploring all the infinite possibilities that lie within you. They're always there, waiting to be discovered.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into abundant spirituality. We hope you've gained some valuable insights and feel, empowered to create a life filled with joy, purpose, and of course, abundance. Until next time, keep diving deep. We'll see you soon.